everyone. Thank you for taking the time to talk a little bit about human-centered AI in GenAI applications, which is really fundamental in crossing the pilot to production gap from all the experience that we've seen. Just to introduce myself, why am I up here? I'm Dennis Panos. I'm the head of solutions for Snorkel.ai. I spent the last decade in enterprise AI, from McKinsey at Quantum Black to Data Robot, and now at Snorkel. And one thing has been proven true and true again. If you design a system for humans to adopt it, you greatly increase the probability of being successful across the development and scaling of this system. Who am I representing today? Snorkel.ai. Snorkel.ai has been around for a decade, encoding human knowledge and reasoning into AI system in a human-in-the-loop, human-centric way. It came out of the Stanford AI Lab as the Snorkel project, many of you may be familiar with, programmatic data labeling at scale, to go back and take unstructured data and apply labels to this. It sounds kind of quaint now that supervised machine learning was the thing, the hottest thing, and getting data to be labeled was at the forefront of this just 5 years ago. Over the last 5 years, this has continued to evolve, and Snorkel has continued to develop new methods for encoding human knowledge and reasoning into AI systems. Snorkel itself today has 2 lines of business. One is an enterprise solutions business that I lead that helps organizations get that final mile of specialization. We also work with all of the frontier labs who are looking at doing this exact work and taking, extending the corpus of knowledge that they have and making it more specific to specific applications, which we'll talk a little bit more about. When we think about developing these AI systems, the tooling that is out there is fascinating. It's continuing to move day by day. Anytime that you think that you've heard a new acronym, you go from MCP to A. You see Claude 4.5 get released yesterday, and it's developing new capabilities. So it's truly an evolutionary or a revolutionary time that we're living in. That being said, as I highlighted, one of the key fundamental aspects of this is that humans are at the center of this loop, and that humans' willingness and ability to absorb this technology can become a limiting factor. When we think about this from a human-centric point of view, I like to think not just about GenAI, but other technologies that are really pacing the world right now. One area that many of us might have seen if you flew in was the ability to get Waymo. Waymo has technology that has cameras everywhere, but you also might have driven here in a Tesla. And Tesla's self-driving capabilities are very different than Waymo's. That being said, they have humans at the center of everything that they do. Why? Because the risk of getting this wrong is so high. So they have both taken different technological approaches to a similar problem. And we may hit natural limitations of these technologies, and one may be the winner. But they have been very clear about what they're trying to do. They're trying to automate driving to make it safer and more routine in a way that we've never seen before. So human-centric technology, or human centricity, has been at the core of what they're doing, and they're using different technological approaches to do this. As practitioners in this field, I challenge us to think in the same way. What is the goal of our end user? What is the business requirement that they're trying to achieve? And then how do we use our technology and our expertise to make sure that we achieve that goal? And we don't just get in these esoteric conversations around new protocols or new technologies and constantly have an arms race around this, when we could be thinking about what does the human want and build from there. In the enterprise space, I think this is an old trope, but for systems to be adopted, they must be trusted. I'll say that again. For systems to be adopted, they must be trusted. They must be trusted on multiple dimensions. In the enterprise space, it's trust that this decision support tool isn't going to replace my job. But also, in the decision support tool, if you're going to provide me information from a GenAI system, is it as good or better than what I could find if I looked this up, or that a colleague would give to me? So trust in the system is implicit. It's a by design principle that we all must work towards. And when you don't build for trust, you don't get adoption. And this is one of the key challenges that many organizations are failing on right now. As we talk through the innovation cycle and where we are in this loop, as everyone has said, and we'll hear it 100 times today, 95% of these GenAI projects are failing. Well, guess what? It's an inopportune for them to be failing because innovation budgets that were very ripe in 2021, 2022, up through 2024 are now disappearing. So now it's the business that's taking on the expense of these GenAI development systems while they're failing. So how do we as practitioners, again, think about this from a human-centric way so that we think about the adoption, the business requirements that are required for us to build against so that we increase the probability of these things getting into production? There's a little bit of a paradox that we see out in the field. And one is that enterprises expect these systems to be a helpful colleague. They very much have raised the bar from coding agents that are sitting with developers to decision support tools to co-pilots that are speaking into the ears of customer service reps. They expect these to be helpful colleagues with a very, very high bar. Although much of our interactions on a day-to-day basis are with ChatGPT. And we're always impressed with ChatGPT, but we actually give ChatGPT more grace. Because as any of us who've used it probably this morning will say, if you're an expert in the field, very often it's going to come back with something that you can very quickly pick up and say, this is not the way I would have thought about it, but we use it for what it's helpful for. So in the enterprise space, the bar is much higher, and as the builders in this room, we need to build for that higher expectation. That being said, this is happening in the real world right now. Many of you may have seen that X just last week said we are now getting into the specialization game. Well, they did it in a public signal. They've been in the specialization game for a number of years. You can look at Google DeepMind developing medical specialization inside of their models, to Anthropic, to X. But the way that they're going after this is they moved away from generalist annotators to specialists, doctors, engineers, so that they can encode the knowledge and reasoning of these specialists into their system so that they can answer it. Now, many will say that that's the answer. What I'll say is that's the answer for some businesses, but is it the answer for your business? Because your business is special. Your business has a brand that has been built over decades. Your business has policies and procedures that help drive operational excellence. Your business and off-the-shelf GenAI have very, very different expectations from your customers, from your bosses, and from your colleagues. So we must build, as the frontier models continue to improve, we ourselves must take this improvement and build the specialization above that so that we can capture the value. Because when you think about what GenAI does for you, it's an extension of your workforce. It's that decision support assistant that a credit officer is using, so they now can compress a week's worth of research into hours and just cross-check this because the GenAI system helps to pull this together. To the customer-facing chatbot that's representing your brand during a phone call or during an online chat for a billing situation when a customer's frustrated. And they must represent the brand in an authentic voice, but they also are placing the organization at financial risk because if they don't get the policies right and respond with the right context based on the behavior of that customer and the policies that are applicable to this customer, you can fail. So the bar is quite high. The frontier model providers, as far as they will push the barriers of their specialization, for many of the applications in your organization, it won't be enough. As we think through this, it's that human trust by agentic tasks that drive this adoption. And this can vary by the types of agentic systems that we're running here. fully autonomous systems with limited oversight, agent-to-agent communications, tool calling, running complex business processes. How are we ensuring that these are reflecting the knowledge of your organization? To the chatbots that we discussed, how are you recognizing that you're trusting them to represent your brand and the equity that you've built in the market and your distinctive moats that you've built over time? To do this, you build trust one brick at a time, but you crash it down all at once. How many of us have sat here and had a conversation with a chatbot that it just didn't make any sense to you? Or seen a POC that when someone stress tested it, it fell apart quite quickly. So these are observations that you see on a regular basis, and it is our job to make sure that we build robust systems that are specialized, encoding your human knowledge of your business into these systems and in a systematic way. We need to get away from saying, oh, hallucinations, let's just turn the temperature down to 0 and that'll become deterministic. Still doesn't. And move into a place where we say, actually, as a matter of fact, we're building these AI software systems from the ground up, understanding what humans will adopt and building those systems with defense in depth so that they answer correctly every time. And while we say that 95% of GenAI projects fail, I always like to highlight it can be far worse. You could put systems out in the wild that just do random things. Each person has their favorite on this, but what I think about is the person who got over on Air Canada. I fly quite a bit, and so sometimes you see stuff like this, you're like, that's great. But think about this. If you had built this system and put this into the wild, the amount of energy that was taken to resolve this, from the C-suite to the data science team to policy and compliance and legal, far outweighed what it would have taken to build this correctly the first time that they went out. And it's on that we want to recognize that your GenAI systems are high trust. They require you to build beyond what exists now and will exist from the foundation models. They require you to build in your policies and your knowledge into these systems through a rigorous approach. We'll talk a little bit about what that approach is. Before we get to the specifics of the approach, once again highlighting how to think about this. Humans are in the loop for adopting these systems and using them in practice. How are we thinking about bringing these humans in the loop from the project specification to understanding what it will take to build a system that augments their capabilities? How are we thinking about building in a way that understands different context, that can respond in a way that a human would to questions that aren't common but do happen in the real world? And how are we doing this in a way that is accurate always, that is transparent when required, and is free of bias and fairness in the systems? And one way to do this is to truly think about this as AI software. These are AI software systems, and the more you think about this with an AI product manager point of view, the more you can truly think through, how are we building out this product specification? What is this agent or agentic system supposed to do? What are the requirements that it has on accuracy, on referenceability, across the dimensions that matter to you? How are you then building out rigorous evaluations so that you can understand the difference between what the frontier model is that you're building upon, what its capabilities are, and what the requirements are, so you can be rigorous in your context engineering across the entire AI system? So you can understand where there's gaps in knowledge and reasoning of your system, so you can do data development and then go through the fine-tuning process so you can encode this knowledge into the system, and do this again and again in a rigorous fashion so that we move much more towards an AI system that looks and feels like an AI product, and less around experimentation in a way that's not rigorous. in a way that doesn't meet the standards of modern software systems. When we think about this, another way to state this, you can go through this and understand from your business requirements, what are those evaluations that are developed by the end users who will be adopting this software, the experts in your business? Against those evaluations, how are you then having these experts help to evaluate the performance of the foundation models you're building these systems upon, and identifying those error modes and going through that rigorous development process, which oftentimes leads in the enterprise to data development. And data development can be everything from going to third parties to develop new data sets and so that you can encode that knowledge, to using your subject matter experts to annotate data that you can then upload, or using synthetic data in a sparse manner so you don't pollute the system, but encoding this knowledge into your systems and following this process again and again. This picture up here shows it's pretty simple in practice, but many enterprises that we work with are doing this on vibes. If you asked anyone to say, hey, can you show me what your test process is, for test and development processes, they vibe code it. And it's one of those places where I think as ML practitioners, we can learn from our software development leaders who have gone through this journey before of rigorously testing and documenting where they've been so that you can, one, roll things back if they don't work, but two, you get into an iterative development cycle as a team. 2 examples to end. If I want. 2 examples, and on the screen they appear to be great stories. 82% straight through processing on emails that have come through. That's a great automation win. It highlights, those 18% that don't get straight through processed end up getting flagged for human to review. It's a great system. On the other side, you look at a 95% accuracy on a billing chatbot that's representing a brand. But what's unsaid on this page is that both of these development efforts had been run by really strong machine learning teams for many, many months. 9 months on the billing telco, 6 months on the automation side, but only achieving half of the accuracy that they should have, that was required by this business requirements. So what did we do? We had the opportunity to walk in with them and instill this disciplined approach of understanding true business requirements from a human-centric point of view, turning those into AI product specifications, testing those, and then identifying error modes and developing them. In both these cases, from when we walked in to when we left, it was about 2 months to get these to production. And what I would challenge each and every one of you to do is to say, how can I save more time for my business and build this in from the get-go? Getting rid of vibes that don't result in accuracy and moving towards a more systematic evaluation and development process can be a critical unlock to, one, making sure that your end users adopt what you're building. 2, to doing this at pace. And 3, earning the right to doing it again and again as we move from innovation budgets into business budgets. And we have to continue to impact our businesses in unique ways. Thank you so much today for your time. Really appreciate it. It's great to see all of you out here. And that's it for me. I'll be at the Snorkel. Thanks.